Hello and welcome to episode 4.10, the March 19th, 2025 Desert Spring edition of Notes from the Aisle Seat, the podcast that covers the arts in northern Chautauqua County, sponsored by the 1891 Fredonia Opera House. My name is Tom Laughlin, and I'm your host as we bring you news and information about arts events at the Opera House and around the region, including interviews with artists and creators across the county. Spring in the desert is a little different than spring back home. There is no grass turning greener and needing mowing, and there are few trees that bud out and begin to grow leaves. I am told that right at this moment, spring here is very much delayed due to lack of moisture. Usually things start to bloom in February, but it hasn't rained at all since we've been here, which has led to a delayed blooming of desert flowers and cacti. Hopefully I may get a chance to see some of this colorful blooming, but for now, it's too arid, and I only have a few more days before heading out to Washington State. I'm sure I'll catch up with spring in the Pacific Northwest. If there's one thing that feels spring-like no matter where you are, it's viewing a painting by one of the Impressionist masters. The 1891 Fredonia Opera House will be presenting a documentary entitled The Dawn of Impressionism, Paris, 1874, on Saturday, March 22nd at 1 p.m. Part of the Arts in the Afternoon series, this documentary uses the artists' own words from their journals to tell their stories and struggles. I spoke with distinguished Professor of Art Emeritus Alberto Rey about this period in art history and what makes it so famous. Well, coming to the 1891 Fredonia Opera House on Saturday, March 22nd at 1 p.m. is another exhibition on screen, and it is entitled Dawn of Impressionism, Paris, 1874. And it's a documentary about the rise of Impressionism. And with me to talk about that is my all-time favorite expert on all things art. It's distinguished Professor Emeritus Alberto Rey from the Department of Visual Arts and New Media. Welcome, Alberto.
Thank you, Tom. It's always a pleasure talking to you about this and anything else you want to talk about.
Yes, I do love these chats because usually, I learn so much from you, and I know that everybody who's listening really enjoys your expertise on these matters. So let's get right down to it because I think that one of the things I noticed in doing my research, you probably noticed the same thing, is that what they mention is that Impressionism is everybody's favorite art form, art period of art. I mean, when I get my wife a calendar for Christmas, I usually get her an Impressionism calendar because she loves it so. So let's talk just generally about what Impressionism is and why you think people love it so much.
So the why is it so popular? I think, first of all, it's a lot of it is very seductive, very beautiful, and there's it's a very accessible. So you don't have to look too far to find a Monet painting or um, other artists whose work has been at the forefront of blockbuster exhibitions. So I guess that's why I would think it's popular, but I'm probably not the typical art viewer, so that's what I would suggest.
Well, I mean, sometimes I feel the same way about theater in the sense that I know what people like about theater, but if you asked me to go to one of those plays, I'd probably balk a little bit. Same kind of
Yeah,
idea. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk about this specific uh, documentary that's coming, Dawn of Impressionism, and they particularly point out an exhibit in Paris in 1874 that had a lot of what we would call big name Impressionist artists in it. Can you talk a little bit about the significance of that particular exhibition?
Well, I think let me say a little bit about this documentary that's coming. I think it's really interesting because what they do is they focus on the journals and the writings of the artists during that time, and then they formulate this film about what was happening in their lives. And I find that to be always very interesting and exciting because you get the, the everyday experience of these artists who are not very popular and they're barely making a living and they're trying to get into these salon exhibitions that are highly juried, but they're juried because they want to accept the work that the jurors are doing themselves. So, um, it's something that they are trying to make popular by selecting work that they like. So the other thing is that they're also going to put artwork in salons. They're going to put a ton of artwork. First of all, it's going to be one right next to the other, on top of each other, all the way up to the top of the ceiling. So consequently, what happens is the art that they like the most are going to be at eye level, and the work that they're not so excited about, if they even put it in the exhibition, it's going to be super high. And remember, this isn't great lighting to start with, so you might have a work in a salon, but it might be so far up that nobody's even going to see it. So that is critical, also the placement of it. And again, this was the most prestigious exhibition in France, and in some ways part of Europe, where collectors and supporters would come to figure out what the uh, experts thought were the best work and by the best artists. It's important to know that that's what's going on when these artists are trying to do this kind of new work. And every artist and what we consider impressionist artists is really doing something different. It's not like they're all doing one thing. They're all just doing their own interpretation of pushing the borders, of pushing what is accepted. And they see it in a completely different light than some other artists that is part of the Impressionist group. We see them all as one group, but really they're not. I mean, they're all kind of going in their own different direction.
So, I think this film is also celebrating I believe, the 150th year of this particular exhibition, and they're going to use the National Art Gallery in Washington, D.C., as well as the Musée Orly, I believe, in Paris, as
Hmm.
their basis for looking at some of these paintings. What do you think is going to be some of the significant artists that are going to be, portrayed here in this documentary?
Well, there was again, I guess I partially didn't answer your last question, which was why is this exhibition so important? And that is because during the 1860s, the 1867, three-fifths of the work that was submitted was rejected, and there was such an uproar that Napoleon decided to set up another exhibition that he called the Salon des Refusés, which meant anything that was rejected, people could submit. So it would be another exhibition. But again, people went to see it because they was so avant-garde, but it didn't get the crowds that the regular show got. So the Impressionists, who were at the time called Anonymous Society of Painters, Sculptors, and Engravers, wanted to have an exhibition, but they didn't want the perception that this was like just rejected artwork. So in 1873, they decided to put their funds together. They had 31 artists, and they put their funds together to pay for um, to put their work in this artist studio, a photographer called Nadar, who had this beautiful three-story studio, and one of the floors he dedicated to the exhibition. And so the exhibition was open for a month. It was open between 10 and 6 in 10 in the morning, 6 in the afternoon, and then again 6 to 8. And it did get like 3,500 visitors, but that's nothing in relationship to the 400,000 that the salon got. And they also wanted to make sure that they put the exhibition on before the salon opened So that first they weren't competing with it, but also they hadn't accepted the artists that were going to be in the salon, so it wouldn't be the artists of rejected um, artists who were rejected from the exhibition, and everybody in the exhibition had at one point been in the salon exhibition, so they could everybody except from Cezanne, who never really took that exhibition seriously and always submitted something that he knew would get rejected. So that's one of the reasons that this exhibition was important. And then Impressionism, the word impression, came from a critic, Leroy, who wrote about it kind of satirically, um, thinking that it was an impression of reality. It was an impression of a painting. So he didn't take it seriously. So that's where Impressionism actually came from with this review. But they still considered themselves the Anonymous Society. It wasn't until later that the public considered them as impressionists, and that's where we are now.
And how long did it take before, these artists and painters who were going at this particular style, how long did it take for them to get to be, sort of recognized as uh, experts and, almost geniuses in terms of the work that they produced? I mean, people like Monet and Cezanne and Van Gogh are at the tip of even somebody like me who's a layman in art, basically. So,
Right.
how long did that take for them to get there?
It took a while. I mean, Monet really was accepted more in the United States before he got the respect that he that we know of now. I mean, there was a lot of collectors from the United States who came and bought his work. Um, but the French really, they had some supporters, but he wasn't as popular with collectors as he was in the United States. And then over time, his work became more and more accepted. So it took quite a while. And the again, it was the Americans in a lot of ways who pushed um, this kind of art form into popularity.
When I think about Impressionism too, sort of to bring this little discussion sort of full circle, I think one of the things that makes it popular for me anyway are two things I would point out. One is the use of color. I think a lot of Impressionism is very brightly colored, and I think that has a tendency to attract people to it. The blues and the yellows and all of that are so rich in a lot of Impressionism art. And the other thing about it is that, they seem to be um, paintings of people, in everyday situations. You see a mother and a child in a park. You see a painting of a boulevard, and people are just kind of walking around, taking their, doing their daily business, and so on and so forth. Does that resonate with you at all in terms of what creates the popularity of the art? Because you mentioned the term accessibility, and I think those are
Mhm.
two aspects that I think make Impressionism to people so accessible.
Yeah, I think, I think yes in some ways, but I think in a lot of ways, realism is probably the most accessible. And the reason is that people can identify it. That's what they see when they look out the window or they see around them. So the idea that somebody can paint something realistically, I think, is probably the most accessible. One of the things about Impressionism, I think, that captures people's attention is the emotion of it.
Ah,
It's that it's not, I think sometimes realism can get caught in the details. So there's so much information that you're just kind of enthralled in everything that's happening, but you really miss the emotion, that the painter misses the emotion. Um, and I think with Impressionism, you're not limited by reality. So you can concentrate on the feelings or emotions that the artist wants to portray through the paint. And oftentimes that's through the brushwork or through the colors, and it's not necessarily through the super realistic interpretation of what they're doing.
hmm. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I like that idea of emotionality because, the painting itself really evokes something in the viewer in a
Mhm.
way that I don't think any other style perhaps does.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So listen, I never like to go from an interview with you without knowing what you're up to, what you're doing, what your next exhibit for yourself is going to be. I think you got a big one coming up at the college pretty soon.
Yeah, September, I think it's September 15th. Let's see here. I have a big solo exhibition, and it's going to be some work from my past series, but most of this new work is work that's been inspired by um, the around the world trip that my wife and I went on for 5 months. Yeah, the exhibition opened September 5th. Um, and so I think I'm going to create about 100 new works. They're going to be small, but it's going to be realistic and abstract. So it's going to be a little bit of everything, a very diverse, eclectic range of subject matter. And I'm pretty excited to put it together. I think it's going to be an opportunity to kind of at this late stage of my life bring together a little bit of everything I've learned over the decades of painting and looking at art, and without being necessarily restricted by a specific theme, so I can just go a little crazy on what I want to do.
So it's a little bit of Alberto Rey, past, present, and future, we'll say.
That's it. That's it.
Well, I think people are going to look forward to that, and you can be sure I'll bring you back on the podcast to talk about that once you have those 100 paintings done. It blows my mind that you could just sit there casually and say, "Oh, I'm going to put 100 new works out there." I've been in your studio so many times, and I
Yeah.
see all the paintings there, and I go, "Man, he's just got 100 paintings there he could put."
Yeah, I know. I don't want to think about that. I don't want to think about that.
All right. Well, we won't talk about that. Well, listen,
Yeah.
Alberto, thanks again for coming on. I appreciate it as always. Always enjoy a conversation with you. And well, for sure, we'll be seeing you in September.
All right. Thanks a lot, Tom. Take care.
Okay. Thanks a lot, Alberto. Bye bye. The Dawn of Impressionism, Paris, 1874, will be screened at the 1891 Fredonia Opera House on Saturday, March 22nd, beginning at 1 p.m. Tickets are $15 for adults and $10 for students. Call the box office at 716-679-1891 or go online at www.fredopera.org/tickets to get your ticket for what promises to be a rich and vibrant experience. Arts in the Afternoon is sponsored by Dr. James and Marcia Merrins. And speaking of Arts in the Afternoon, the Fredonia Young Artist Recitals, a series of free one-hour recitals featuring performances by young musicians from the SUNY Fredonia School of Music that takes place at 5:30 in the afternoon, will present its first recital concert on Thursday, March 27th. Originated and organized by Dr. Eliran Avni, these late afternoon recitals make a wonderful afternoon and evening out when paired with a local dinner out or post-recital cocktail. I spoke with Dr. Avni and also with Meredith McIntyre, who will be performing at the piano for this upcoming recital. Well, it's always nice to talk about the Fredonia Young Artist Recitals that take place at the 1891 Fredonia Opera House, usually in the late afternoons. And we're going to have another series of them in the spring semester. And here to talk with me about them now are two of the people involved. The first, of course, is Dr. Eliran Avni. He is a professor of music and is particularly piano over at SUNY Fredonia School of Music. Hi, Eliran.
Hi, everybody.
And I'm also pleased to be joined by Meredith McIntyre. Meredith is a junior music ed major who is also the president of the Fredonia Student Keyboard Association. And she's going to be one of the young artists who will give one of these recitals coming up at the Opera House. So welcome to you, Meredith.
Thank you. Hello.
Hello. Uh, let's talk first, Eliran. We're going to get your perspective on this since you initiated this. Let's
It's all
talk.
my fault. It's always my fault. I start these things and then I need to get people to come to them. So it's blame it on me.
Listen, you're one of the most You're one of the most hardworking people over there at the School of Music that I'm aware of. So, if I have to cast blame on anybody for the success of what's going on in the piano world,
Thank
it's
you.
you. So
Thank you. I appreciate it.
you're
But
welcome. Um, so let's talk a little bit about the importance of the concept of the recitals, what you've been trying to do with this, and why you think it's such an important thing for students to have as an experience.
right. So I mean, first of all, we need to thank Rick and the team and the Opera House for allowing us to. This is going to be our 6th year doing it, I believe, and we couldn't have done it without them. It's so great to know that we have their support and we have the incredibly beautiful space of the Opera House to perform in. It's I think every time I walk in there, I'm like, I want to play here. It's so great. It's so beautiful. The acoustics is incredible. Just the feeling that you're playing in a real theater, on a real stage. It is not, for education purposes, or it's not because we're having a jury or a test. Just the act of making music in a real environment for people who really want to hear music. There's nothing better than that. And so I think that from my perspective as a teacher, I want my students to go on stage and have the experience of, this is what a professional does. We prepare, we learn the piece, we have to deal with an instrument we don't know, we need to deal with an acoustics that we're not familiar with. Maybe the pedal is a little creaky, maybe there's somebody coughing in the audience. We need to deal with all these real life situations that normally in a school we wouldn't. And so I started this concert program to reach out to the community, but also to give our students a chance at real life experience performing. Meredith, am I successful in creating that experience for you guys?
Well, yeah, I would say so. The 2.0 concert series, we have how many? 4 a semester,
Yep.
roughly. A couple out in Westfield at the Patterson Library and a couple in the Opera House. And those are 2 very different spaces. The Westfield Library is more intimate, whereas the Opera House is a very large stage and a lot of seating. And it's really nice to have those 2 different experiences alongside performing on campus at Fredonia. I also think it's really nice that it's such a well-preserved historical venue. I think it's really cool, as someone who really cares a lot about historical preservation and historical accuracy. I really do enjoy walking in there and playing in there. It's fun to be backstage with my friends and listening to my other friends play, and they come back, we all give the high fives. It's a really nice time when we all go together.
I'm always jealous upstairs because I know I can hear the laughs from down. I know that they're having a party down there in the green room. Like, I want to be in the party too, but no, listen to the music and then have the party.
Yeah, it's good. They have. I'm glad that they're enjoying themselves. That's really, and I think that's wonderful because you sometimes we get the impression, outsiders like me, that all these people are stuffy, and when you hear them having a lot of fun backstage before they go on to play, okay, we'll take the stuffiness right out of it. These are just young people having a good time. That's great.
Sure.
Meredith, let me ask you something. What's the difference between, for you personally, the difference between playing within the confines walls of the School of Music building, Mason Hall, and then going out and playing in the Fredonia Opera House? I mean, do you sense a subtle difference between the two in terms of how you feel when you play in one place or the other?
Yeah, the Opera House, um, well, the performances on campus, although they are for fun and we put them on FISCA, the Student Keyboard Association, we schedule a few each semester. And so they are concerts that are free of an academic grade, but when you're still performing on campus in the same room, you're going to do your jury in front of your peers and your teachers when they go, is still kind of a little stressful. And granted, there might be family members in the audience and stuff, but it's still like I'm still on campus, still practicing for my jury, and I'm getting a performance opportunity in this place to practice for my jury. And it's a little bit easier at the Opera House because you're outside of the school walls, you're interacting with more of the community. And although we're still trying to figure out how to get more students to go, it's a little less pressure because you're not in front of all your peers. You're more just giving a gift to the community at large, like almost like a thank you for letting us college students come in and fill up your town for a few months and then I'll go home. Like, I do think it's really nice. It's a good gesture to give music back to the community. And you see the people who go to the concerts at the Opera House and on campus. I know there's a gentleman who goes with a notepad and he takes notes about all the concerts. And it's always nice to see the regular people there. And you know you're making a difference.
Yeah, I love that phrase you use, and I saw Eliran gave a thumbs up too about giving a gift to the community, and I sort of wish that people would appreciate the gifts that the students give because there's so much. I'm sorry to say this, but there's always that negative publicity at the end of the year with the Not Fred Fest, and yet at the same time, there's so much that the students give to the community. I think a lot of times that is overlooked by the community in terms of what they're giving, both on campus and within the Opera House and other venues. And I think we should focus on that a little bit more,
Yeah.
perhaps.
Like it is, we do give more than business to all the local bars.
Exactly, exactly. Now, one of the things that we are constantly trying to do here at the Opera House, of course, is and the reason this podcast exists actually is to try and get more people to come to some of these events. And I know, Eliran, you have spent a little time here thinking about that, and you have given us maybe a top 5 list. I mean, about why people should come. So let's get into that.
You guys have to help me to count. I'm not sure I have 5, but here we go. Um, well, definitely the first one on my list is this, these concerts are free. So in terms of giving to the community, what's better than a free concert, right? So
Absolutely.
so there's that, and then I really think we're doing it at a fun time, 5:30 on Thursdays. You can come hear the concert. We never go longer than an hour, and then at 6:30 you can hop to your favorite restaurant, be it Domus or something else, and enjoy a dinner. And it's a night out, and you got the concert for free. Did I mention it was free? It's a free concert. Um, then you get to hear. This is I get this is I think this is a pro. I think this is a wonderful thing. But you get to see these young people play over long stretches of time. You heard, I'm sure, the Meekum brothers play violin and piano many, many times on these series, and you see their evolution, you see their growth, and it's really fun to see how they started, sort of, green and a little insecure, and how they blossomed to be these incredible mature musicians who are on their way to Juilliard. So come here, how this talent progresses, how this talent grows. I think that's an incredible opportunity. You get to talk to the performers after. You get to say hi to the kids and talk to them and tell them how much you enjoyed it or didn't enjoy the Schoenberg suite that they just played. That's, it's fair game, criticism and compliments. And last thing I'm going to say is about the repertoire. I never know what's going to happen in these concerts in advance. It's not that we plan these concerts as you would a normal concert years in advance with a set program. I basically see what people are ready to play, and it becomes this nice smorgasbord of chamber music and solo pieces and some piano and some cello and maybe a quartet. We actually had an octet on stage in one of the previous concerts. We had a piece for 2 clarinets and piano. We started having singers come and join us. So it's an eclectic program of very different styles, very different combinations of instruments. I think it's really interesting. Was that 5? Did I
That
give you
was
5?
5. That was 5 on the head.
Meredith, did I forget
Yeah.
anything?
Well, I'll add a few from the student perspective. Um, I think it's really nice that when I'm not performing, that I get to see another thing in the opera house other than opera scenes. Like I really only go to the opera house to watch something, because most of the time I'm playing in these concerts. I really only go to the opera house to watch something when opera scenes happens once a year. And every time I go in there, I'm like, this is an awesome space. I wish I could be here more. And I think the concerts of the opera house give students an opportunity to visit more often. I also think that, yeah, it is really nice to be able to perform and interact with the community after. It kind of breaks the illusion that the people on stage are untouchable and they hide away at school and they come out and they just perform and go away. It's like, no, we're real people. We're real students. We're real young adults, and
If I
we're
can jump
sociable
on
and
if I
yeah.
can jump on that for 1 second, I can't stress this enough. There should be this reciprocal relationship between artist and audience. we work really hard on presenting a piece, and then we prepare something, and then it's like a meal. We prepared a really nice meal for somebody, and then we give it to somebody who is hungry and wants to eat. Unfortunately, in a learning situation, you keep serving food to people who are don't want to see any more food. They're full. And so this idea of I actually prepared something, it's delicious, and somebody gets to enjoy it, that's what this is all about. So the
And
feeling that,
Dr. Avni,
yeah,
you've mentioned to me before that the audience is the composer, the performer, and the audience are all necessary to each other for a
yeah,
piece to exist. And
right,
the opera house is another space for there to be an audience, and it's
right.
super important for people to be there in order for this music to exist in this space.
Yeah, think about it. You worked so hard on preparing a meal, and all you're getting is a grade for it. That's not right. What you should get is applause and people smiling and telling you how much they enjoyed, your Schumann or your Beethoven, and not just, oh, you need to make sure that measure 5 is a D sharp and not a D natural. I mean, we need the feedback. We need people to enjoy music, and in the difficult times that we are living in, I think that music and young talent and these masterpieces, that's what we want more of.
Yeah, well, I think, I was just exactly going to make a comment about that in terms of the fact that, another reason I think people should come to the Opera House to listen to these concerts, it's because it's an hour of peace in their lives. We're beset with so many stresses right now in all aspects of our lives. And to go to a concert for an hour and listen to the beauty of the music and the beauty of the young people playing it, I think that's just an hour of contemplative peace that I think everybody should try and seek out.
It's very good for you, very healthy. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, good for your mental state. Meredith, you know what you're going to be playing in the future?
Yes,
What?
this semester I've been working on a couple character pieces by Robert Schumann out of his Chrysleriana set. I'm preparing 2 movements from that, and I really love these pieces. They've been some of my favorite that I've ever played. Um, I've also been preparing a Beethoven sonata movement, movement 4 of his Pastoral Sonata, and it's really light and jaunty and fun. It's the rondo. I really like it. And then the Fredonia Student Keyboard Association, we're promoting an underrepresented composers concert to be held somewhere off campus relatively soon. So I prepared a piece for that concert by Czech composer Vítislava Kapralova. It's from her April Preludes set that she wrote when she was in her 20s. She died at 25, so despite dying so young, she's actually pretty prolific. She has 25 opus works, not one for every year of her life, but she did write a good amount of music in a short amount of time. So this is the second movement from her April Preludes that I'm preparing, and it has a lot of elements of music that I've liked in past pieces that I've played, like music by Bela Bartok. So I'm really enjoying preparing that too. I'm excited to play some of them at the Opera House.
Wow. Eliran, she's a particularly articulate young lady. Where did you find her?
It's SUNY Fredonia.
Thank you.
Hey,
Yeah,
listen,
I'm blessed. I'm surrounded by really, really wonderful, very, very talented young people, and they're all going to be on stage. March 27th is the next concert, and then the following one is April 24th. It's a Thursday, 5:30. Make your reservation for your favorite restaurant after and come hear some really incredible music. We're going to have a Mendelssohn quartet, several Beethoven sonatas. Anthony's playing a Rachmaninoff etude. Gianni's playing the Liszt Rigoletto paraphrase, Shostakovich, Schumann. Marie's playing a piece by Florence Price called Cherry Blossoms in Her Hair, which is a beautiful, beautiful waltz, and many, many other pieces. It's going to be very, very exciting. And I strongly encourage you to come and have fun with us at the Opera House.
there can't be anything better come the early spring than a nice warm spring evening, some beautiful music, and then a dinner out. I can't think of a better way to spend an evening. Hey, Eliran, what's up with you? What's going on with your creative life these days? You wanna fill us in before we go?
I don't have time for anything creative. No. I'm doing Grieg concerto with the Amherst Symphony in April. So that's what's coming up for me.
Oh, that's great. Okay. I figured you had to have something. If
I
you
want to
didn't,
get bored. I don't want to get bored.
well, if you didn't have something, then you'd have to sleep. You don't want to do that, do you?
No, no, never.
Meredith, thank you so much for joining me. I really enjoyed listening to you talk about your work and your art and your life, and you're a very articulate young lady. So thanks for joining me.
Thank you,
Uh,
Tom.
Eliran, wonderful again as always to talk to you. Best of luck to you, and hopefully we can draw that crowd just a little bit more to this series, because it's a wonderful series that the Opera House is sponsoring. We need more people to really appreciate what you guys are doing. So thank you for all your work in that.
Thank you, and thank you for inviting us.
You bet.
you.
We'll be talking to you again at some point. So long.
Bye.
Bye.
The free, we can't say that word free enough. Free Fredonia Young Artist Recitals will take place on March 22nd and again on April 24th at the 1891 Fredonia Opera House beginning at 5:30 p.m. For those of you in the Westfield area, they will also be performing at the Patterson Library on April 17th and May 1st, also at 5:30 p.m. While the event is free, donations are always gratefully accepted. Here is the arts calendar from March 20th to April 1st. If you're listening to this podcast before March 20th, don't forget to get your tickets for Newberry and Virch on Thursday, March 20th, beginning at 7 p.m. at the Opera House. Hopefully tickets will still be available for this concert, so call the box office at 716-679-1891 for more information. And listen to the March 5th edition of the podcast for an interview with Joe Newberry and April Virch. The cinema series continues at the Opera House with a screening of the box office hit A Complete Unknown, a biopic on the life of Bob Dylan starring Timothée Chalamet. The film will be screened on Saturday, March 22nd, and again on Tuesday, March 25th at 7:30 p.m. each night. Tickets are available at the door only and are $7 for adults, $6.50 for seniors and members, and $5 for students. Here are the upcoming concerts at the School of Music. The Fredonia Jazz Orchestra with guest artist Troy Roberts, a three-time Grammy-nominated saxophonist and composer, will perform on Friday, March 28th in Roush Recital Hall beginning at 8 p.m. Other concerts include the Flute and Bassoon Ensembles on Monday, March 31st, and the Tuba and Euphonium Ensembles on Wednesday, April 1st. All these concerts are in Roush Recital Hall beginning at 8 p.m. and are free and open to the public. And finally, the documentary film Qatar Stars will be screened on Tuesday, April 1st at the Darwin R. Barker Library beginning at 6 p.m. Qatar Stars follows a rhythmic gymnastics school in Doha with girls aged 9 through 15 from Qatar, Egypt, Lebanon, Ukraine, and the UK. A Q&A with director Danielle Beverly from the School of Communications at Northwestern University will follow. And remember, if you have an arts event you'd like mentioned on the arts calendar, please contact us at the Opera House at 716-679-1891 or email us at operahouse@fredopera.org. Please give us at least a month's notice of your event to ensure a timely listing.
If I did love you in my master's flame, with such a suffering, such a deadly life, in your denial I would find no sense. I would not understand.
Why? What would you?
Make me a willow cabin at your gate, and call upon my soul within the house. Write loyal cantons of contemned love, and sing them loud, even in the dead of night. Halloo your name to the reverberate hills, and make the babbling gossip of the air cry out, Olivia. Oh, you should not rest between the elements of air and earth, but you should pity me.
That's the voice of recently deceased Dame Joan Plowright, performing the Willow Cabin speech from William Shakespeare's madcap comedy Twelfth Night, or What You Will. The Department of Theater and Dance will be performing this delightful comedy under the direction of distinguished teaching professor Paul Makovac for 6 performances over 2 weekends beginning on Friday, March 28th. Mr. Paul is notoriously humble and microphone averse, so he sent over 4 members of his production team to speak with me about the show. Here's our conversation. One of Shakespeare's most well-known plays is Twelfth Night, or What You Will. And with me now to talk about this most magnificent and humorous and funny of Shakespeare's works are 4 people who are involved in the production. First of all, I have Dr. Robert Deemer. Dr. Deemer is the current chair of the Department of Theater and Dance, as well as professor of music composition at the School of Music. Rob, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
You bet. With me also is Jessica Lustig. Jessica is the costume designer, and she is representing the design elements for this show. Jessica, good to have you.
Thank you so much. I'm delighted to be here.
Great. And I also have the 2 principals in the play. Amelia Elman is playing Viola. Hi, Amelia.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
You bet. And Aidan Heaney is playing Olivia. Aidan, welcome.
Hello, thank you.
You're welcome. All right. So let's start with the ladies who are in the show and playing the 2 roles that are, play opposite each other. Amelia, let's talk to you a little bit first about Viola. It's a pretty well-known part among actors. They love to play it. What do you find so entrancing about it so far?
I think that it's really interesting just like following her journey because like when we meet her, she's just survived a shipwreck where she loses her twin brother, at least she thinks that she does, and she ends up stranded in Illyria, which I think really sets up her experience throughout the rest of the play. She's just such a resilient character and like truly lives moment to moment, which I think grounds a lot of the chaos of the characters around her, even when she's in like her own chaos, which it's been really fun to play with. Because a lot of the other characters in the show are these big comedic roles. And she kind of brings everything down to like, okay, this is what's actually happening.
Yeah, that's actually a good insight, because it's like, and I love the word chaos. If nothing, Twelfth Night is one chaotic play. For you, Aidan, she starts the play off as sort of an aloof person. She won't admit any of Count Orsino's emissaries, but then all of a sudden, she meets this young person, and somewhere around the middle of the first meeting, something triggers in her. And next thing you know, she's like a 14-year-old fangirl who's chasing after, her love of her life. Well, how are you managing that? Because there's a very instantaneous turnover for that character.
It is a very, very tricky challenge to play someone who starts in such a specific place, and specifically a very, very dark place of grieving the death of her own brother as well as her father, and suddenly being put in charge of this whole estate, which, as Amelia mentioned, can get very chaotic with a lot of the clown characters who come in. It's a very high pressure situation for Olivia at the top of the play. And then when Cesario, which is Viola's alter ego alias as a man, comes in and delivers messages of Count Orsino's love to Olivia, the way that I've sort of been justifying it for myself, what triggers that switch is there is a very, very famous speech that Viola gives Olivia, the Willow Cabin speech, where she tells Olivia how she would respond if she was in love with Olivia. And it's very different from Orsino's sort of the way that Orsino delivers those messages. The way Viola expresses love is this very tender yet determined sort of sense of care. And I think Olivia is a character, especially because she is so deep in her grief, who doesn't feel like she has that care or someone who can provide that outlet for vulnerability. So I think all things just sort of collide at once. Again, chaos is a great word for what Amelia said. Chaos is a great word for what happens in this play. We have all the characters start in a place of chaos. And I think without warning or without expecting it, that just kind of hits Olivia in a way that she never understood she needed to be loved or cared for, but it hits her in that moment, in that speech of, oh, this is what I want. And suddenly she has no choice but to go after it. I have this line later in the play that I deliver to Viola, where I say, I would you were as I would have you be. And that line for me has kind of been the way into the character for me, especially because she is someone who starts in a place of power and of determination and has a very specific worldview and is used to getting her way. she knows what she wants, and she wants Viola to be the kind of love that she is looking for. Whether or not she can provide that is obviously another question in the play, but she wants this love, and she's used to people being what she wants them to be. And Cesario defies all those sort of expectations, which I think is destabilizing, but also very, very intriguing for her.
So much to talk about here, but we'll move on to the design elements. Jessica, let's talk a little bit about design. What world has the play been set in? Quite often, people choose many different worlds to put Shakespeare in. I know I've done that myself many, many times. So what have we got here for design elements?
So the world is not here, not now, not a specific time and place. Our initial jumping off place with the research was Maxfield Parrish illustrations, sort of that luminous, dreamy world, because we didn't want to get tied up in real world politics. We wanted to be fully immersed in this this fantasy story, this sort of fairy tale structure. And so we took very little of the research from the real world. Maxfield Parrish does not have a lot of clothing that is useful for a costume designer in his artwork, but he has beautiful palettes. And so for like actual garment inspiration, I went with pre-Raphaelite painters, because again, that's sort of that fantasy, richly colored world. And then Mr. Paul talked about wanting to have a lot of layering in the costumes. And so I looked at Edwardian clothing because that has a lot of layering in it. And then as far as like showing class structure and households, we started, my jumping off place was actually Olivia's character, because all of the action hinges on her. And so at the top of the show, I have her in a sheer black lace dress over a flame-colored dress. So she's almost like a smoldering fire waiting to be lit. And then once she's lit, her palette's actually inspired by the dahlias in my front garden, where it's this ombres of reds and pinks and oranges. And so she lights up. Her costume literally, like, she lights up, both in color and in texture. And so then, as far as the rest of the household, Olivia's household is sort of the chaos household. Like, a lot of the clown characters are her servants and relatives. And so they have a like pattern on pattern, very bright orange russet purple palette, and lots of movement in their clothes. And then Orsino's household is the much more restrained household. So his household is much more subdued silhouettes and like a sage green and gold color palette. So it's still all very warm, but one is all over the place loud, and the other is warm but very restrained.
Oh, great. I think that's a nice contrast. Anything special about the set, perhaps, that we need to know? Is it?
Oh, yeah. So the set is, again, the jumping off place is the Maxfield Parrish illustrations. And so the world around the house is sort of has the vertical columns combined with natural elements that you find in a lot of his paintings. In fact, the back wall is a projection screen where we'll have changing imagery reminiscent of those paintings. And then there's a unit set. And one of the things that Zertan found in like the artwork and his other research images was the curving lines of Art Nouveau. And so there is a curved unit set with a spiral staircase on one side and then a swooping curved staircase on the other. All of the windows and doorways are arched and curved. So there's sort of this marrying of organic shape and architectural structure, where one kind of bleeds into the other. There's a arch across the front, like near the front of the proscenium, that is tree branches, but it's like Art Nouveau stylized tree branches. And then there's sort of branching patterns in the curved wall. And in Orsino's, when we're in Orsino's world, the more architectural elements are highlighted. And when we're in Olivia's world, the more organic elements are highlighted.
Okay, yeah. Just for clarity, that's Zertan Lim. He's associate professor of scene design over there, and he's the scene designer. So wanted to make that clear. Rob, we got to get to you. Not real quickly, but we need to know about the music, and the reason we need to know about the music is because Twelfth Night is the most musical play of all of Shakespeare's works. There's at least 4 songs that I can think of right off the top of my head, and you can add a lot more music into there, and so on and so forth. And you are doing some original composition for the play, so talk to us about that.
Yeah, to be honest, when we first had our production meetings, there were some students who were like, "Is this a musical with as many songs as we've put in?" Yeah, there are 5 songs in the play, being performed by Katie Spina and Emma McLaughlin, who is going to be the guitarist that follows Katie around. Katie is playing Festi. And basically, Paul Makovac asked me to set Sonnet 18, which is "Shall I Compare Thee to a Summer's Day," to start the play, and then there are the 4 songs: "O Mistress Mine," Come Away, Death," "Let Me Not to the Marriage of True Minds Admit Impediments," which is Sonnet 116, and then it actually it finishes the play when I was and a little tiny boy, where Katie starts it, and then the entire cast ends with a little dance number, which is not something that you normally associate, I think, maybe with at least I haven't seen too many of those in Shakespeare, but it comes off really, really nicely, and it's been a fun thing for me. I don't normally write songs like pop, something similar to folk songs or pop songs, so it's kind of pulled me out of my comfort zone. It's been a lot of fun to be able to work with the students.
What kind of inspiration are you taking for the tunes that you're doing? Are they traditional, or have you found a style for them? What's up with that?
Sure. Well, it started with basically Paul going, "You only get a guitar, and just a singer and a guitar, and that's it." So that kind of helps to limit things a little bit. So basically, yeah, I think Jess mentioned that, the overall conceit of the show is kind of elvish in nature. So I'm pulling harmonies from maybe not Rivendell directly, but things that you could probably associate, and obviously it's Shakespeare. So there are it's very tuneful. I joke with the students that hopefully I get at least one earworm into their brains that they can't get out. And that it's a lot of fun to be able to literally just set it like a pop tune, as opposed to me a more esoteric art song type thing that we might see in a concert stage.
Well, one of the best things about Twelfth Night is the subtitle, which is "What You Will." And I've always taken that every time I've done the play, and I've been in numerous productions of the play, and every time we do the play, it's always a little bit different, a little bit wild, It's like you almost get so much free reign to do what you kind of want to do. Shakespeare sets it in Illyria, which is nowhere, and so there's a great openness like that. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask each of you just one final question and ask you, what do you think is the most interesting moment for you as an artist doing this particular work? I'll start with you, Amelia.
Yeah, I think that there's 2 very interesting moments for me. In the middle of Act 2, there's a moment where Sir Toby and Fabian, from like the other plot that's going on, with like Olivia's household and all of like the clowns, come up to my character and challenged me to a duel. And it's so interesting playing with how different these 2 halves of the show are, and how they like just completely collide in that moment. And that's a very, very interesting moment for me, and how to carry over the way that my half of the play has been playing our characters, and like this grounded kind of realism into this just clown like chaos. I keep saying that word, but it's the best word for the show, I think. And then the other parts are just for me, it's playing with this loss and this homesickness that Viola's dealing with, while also falling madly in love with Orsino, and navigating like the moments where that kind of creeps through, and the moments where maybe she forgets about that because of her experiences with the Duke. So yeah, I think those are the two things that are fun to me.
Aidan, how about you?
Yeah, Amelia hit the nail on the head. This play is filled with so many different textures and moments of extreme, grounded, beautiful love poetry into complete silliness and clown and raunchiness. There are just so many textures to get to play with. Even though a lot of the clown happens in my household, I don't get to interact with a lot of it. We often talk about feeling like there are two different plays going on, and it's really fun to see when they overlap. We were talking about earlier how drastic of a shift Olivia makes, and a lot of that happens off stage. The initial moment of it begins on stage, and then I get to carry that off stage, and it's very interesting to get to come in after having this moment of discovery on stage and having let it ruminate for a while in the play, and then come back with that fully realized, but not having actualized that on stage. That's been very interesting for me in my process as an actor. Another thing that's been interesting that I've never really had to do before, obviously without giving away too much of the plot for someone who might not have seen the show, I have the challenge of interacting with two separate actors who are playing two different people, but because of the circumstances of the play, I think they are the same person. And so creating a consistent relationship and through line with one character who in my conception of the world until the very end is one person, but having that be played by two actors is very interesting. I have to remind myself before my first scene with Finn, who plays Sebastian. I go into being like, okay, time to meet Finn for the first time. And then I have to remind myself, no, I already know this person. I already have an established relationship with this person. It's very interesting as an actor to justify how you keep that relationship alive that you have with one person when suddenly it's a different person.
Yeah, to make that clear, Sebastian is the twin brother of Viola, and that's why that takes place. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. For you, Jessica, what's the big visual moment?
I think with Shakespeare, it's really easy to group characters into archetypes. So, like, you have the clowns, you have the lovers, you have the servants, and finding the specific characters within those archetypes and not losing who they are as individuals is one of the most fun things about costume designing for really any Shakespeare, but this one especially because they are so extreme. And how do you make those extreme archetypes live together in the same world and still make sense? And then the other thing that I really found interesting and kind of struggled with at first, honestly, is Olivia's quick pivot from mourning to not mourning. Because it's not an arc over the course of the show. It's, I'm in mourning, oh, I'm in love. And like how to express that through garments that she would have at her disposal. Like they still have both of those looks have to match her personality, even though they're at like polar opposite ends of the emotional spectrum, and how to dress that.
Yeah, that's really interesting. La Fulmina, the lightning bolt hits her. That's sort of the way it looks at it. And Rob, for you, musically, is there a particular song you like? Are you enjoying one piece over another? Are is this what's triggering your fancy?
Well, one of the spots in the show that was it's been a great way for me to kind of show the students how composing isn't just done in my head, but it can actually be done like right there in the moment. Is when we have come away, Death," and Katie is singing the song, and she goes through a couple of verses, and then Paul Makovac was like, "How about Viola sing with her?" Great, so we had them sing together, and it sounds wonderful. And then I was like, wait a minute, Violet, why don't you start singing 2 bars later and turn it into a round? And I had no idea whether I did not write it with that intent, but I was like, I don't know, this might actually work. And it totally worked. And I will say Amelia just totally picked it up and just ran with it. And now for me, it's one of the most special parts because it was kind of like composing in the moment. Normally I don't do that with everybody else watching, but it was fun to experiment like that. And then to have it work so well, it just seems like, how would it be any other way? So it's kind of fun.
There's so much I enjoy about this play. I think it's a fabulously fun piece of work, and for every time I've gotten to be in it, it's never ceased to be a joy for me. So I know it's going to be a joy for all of you, and I want to thank all of you for coming on the podcast and talking about this great piece of Shakespearean comedy. It's something people really shouldn't miss if they really enjoy having a good time. It's musical, it's fun, it's funny, and it has some of the loveliest language that Shakespeare ever wrote. So for all of those things, people should come see it. So thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay, take care. Twelfth Night, or What You Will be presented by the Department of Theater and Dance beginning on Friday, March 28th at 7:30 p.m. It continues with 7:30 performances on Saturday, March 29th, as well as Thursday through Saturday, April 3rd through 5th. The sole matinee performance is on Sunday, March 30th, beginning at 2 p.m. Tickets are available at the campus box office Monday, Wednesday, Friday from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. at 716-673-3501 or online at www.fredonia.edu/tickets. You won't want to miss this show filled with hijinks, comic chaos, and music. A few items before closing out this episode. Last episode, we featured our first giveaway, 3 pairs of tickets to the Newberry and Verge concert on March 20th. Disappointingly, we didn't get any entries, so there are no winners. But we're not giving up that easily. We're continuing our giveaway this episode with a combo prize. One winner will receive a pair of tickets to the upcoming live concert featuring the Long Point String Band on Friday, April 11th, plus a $25 gift card from Central Station in Dunkirk. That combo would get you a free large fish fry and a drink for dinner before enjoying the Long Point String Band for free. Not bad. To be able to win the tickets and the gift card, all you have to do is send an email with the subject heading Giveaway to operahouse@fredopera.org along with your preferred contact information with the correct answer to the following question. What is the name of the famous speech delivered by Viola in Shakespeare's comedy Twelfth Night? All entries received with the correct answer will be put into a hat and chosen at random. Entries must be received by Friday, March 28th at 12 noon to be eligible for the tickets and the gift card. Again, send your email with the correct answer and your preferred contact information with the subject line Giveaway to operahouse@fredopera.org by Friday, March 28th at 12 noon to win this combo prize. We'll be featuring an interview with the Long Point String Band in the April 2nd edition of the podcast. And don't forget our important fundraiser, the 1891 Run for the Opera House. This year's 5K Run Walk event will take place on Sunday, April 27th, beginning at 9 a.m. Sign up before April 15th for a free t-shirt. Registration is $25 prior to the race, $30 the day of the race, $15 for students under 21. Please check out the link at the bottom of the show notes for this podcast for more information and to register for the run. If you can't participate in the walk run, then think about becoming an Opera House member, which requires no more physical effort than a few mouse clicks on the web page. Membership has its benefits, so join today. And that's it for this Desert Spring edition of Notes from the Aisle Seat. My thanks to Alberto Rey, Eliran Avni, Meredith McIntyre, Rob Deemer, Jessica Lustig, Amelia Elman, and Aidan Heaney for being my guests on this episode. Notes from the Aisle Seat is a production of the 1891 Fredonia Opera House in Fredonia, New York. For more information on any of the Opera House's events, call the box office at 716-679-1891. Visit the website at www.fredopera.org or email at operahouse@fredopera.org. Notes from the Aisle Seat is available wherever you get your podcasts and also on the Opera House YouTube channel. If If you like this podcast, please consider following us by clicking the follow button on our home website at aisleseat.podbean.com and spreading the word through your social media feeds. If you have an arts event you'd like featured on the podcast, why don't you drop us a line at operahouse@fredopera.org and we'll see about featuring your event. Please try to give us a month's notice in advance if possible to facilitate timely scheduling. If you have any suggestions, comments, or criticisms of the podcast, just drop us a line at operahouse@fredopera.org. We'll be glad to receive your feedback. Our next episode will be available on Wednesday, April 2nd, 2025. I'm Tom Laughlin, and until then, be safe out there and be kind to one another.